Happy Thursday, guys! And what can I say is the episode we just saw may be my favourite episode so far. Also, it's all coming back to me. I definitely remember listening it, the visual novel, the game. Definitely remember this. So today's episode was episode 7, Connected Memories. And we open quickly on a brief recap. So HBS wants to make a game show featuring Victor. They've paired up with Miracle Finder. And we open with them arriving on set. So we've got Victor, we've got MC, and the representative of HBS, I can presume, whether it matters after what happens later on, doesn't really matter. What I like is when Victor vanishes, he says, "Don't let them look down on you." It's a really nice piece of advice to give her, like he's trying to reassure her. This episode made me remember why I like Victor so much, so I can't complain. It's probably my favourite episode so far. We find out that she tried her hardest to get Victor to agree. So she would research the profits, research the benefits of pairing up and doing this show. But we also saw that every day Victor would reject her day after day going, "No, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot." Victor finally agrees, and MC is like, "You can't change your mind later. You won't do that, right?" And something we get, which is very important, because this is often repeated in the game quite a bit, is Victor saying, "My word is more certain than any contract." And it really is. So if Victor says he's going to do something, he will do something. He's very reliable in that sense. You can definitely trust him. He said that I was already planning on appearing anyway. It's clear that appearing here would be a big plus to LFG. We also did our research on them too. MC's then like, "So why did you..." And Victor's like, "I was testing your perseverance." You are such a troll. I love you. So it turns out that today's game show is going to be an escape game. I've always wanted to do an escape room. I don't have the people to do it with, and I kind of feel like I feel like I'd let people down. As much as I feel like I'd be really, really smart, I feel like I'd let people down. The HBS guy, obviously, Victor's gone away for filming at this point, so it's just him and MC. Now, this location looks more like Urbex than a escape game, but then I guess there are some escape games which do the kind of urban exploring type thing. It just gave me these really big urban exploring vibes. And a few of you guys know, if you were a fan of the channel before it started doing the anime stuff, I used to travel and I used to do urban exploring myself, so it was a bit of I really miss urban exploring. Did you guys know I was supposed to be in Chernobyl? I was supposed to be going around June, July time. Obviously, traveling right now, not really a thing. That's probably why I've broken into the animes instead of continuing the videos of abroad, because I can't. I will go to Chernobyl at some point. I really want to go. I just won't be doing it this year. Probably going to do it for my birthday, perhaps? Question mark there. So, MC gets a bad feeling about it, and the HBS guy goes, "Why don't you give it a try? You can understand the flow for yourself," kind of thing. And then we go to the credits. So that is the beginning. So the beginning essentially just sets up the run of how this is supposed to go and gives you a bit of backstory into the game show aspect, which is kind of a ploy, as we find out later on. It's not really going to happen. It's more about getting something else to happen instead, which does happen. So we open with the HBS guy finally blowing up his kind of cover, and he locks MC away in a cell. And MC, still thinking it's a game, she starts to panic though, and it starts to trigger some of her trauma. So MC was kidnapped as a child. She gets this trauma of little MC in the same room, doing the same thing, and she starts to realise this is the same location. This is the same place where she was trapped before. And Victor manages to break down the door, and she asks him, "Why are you here?" And we find out that the same thing almost happened to Victor, but because he's got powers of, freezing time, he was able to get away unharmed, and he broke free. He says that this show is not going to be broadcasted, so this was never supposed to be. This is more like, this is a trap. This isn't going to be broadcasted. This has all been a setup. And we get another flashback to the childhood so we get this nice bit where as they're fleeing, we start to see the flashback of the kids escaping from the asylum, I say asylum, it's not really an asylum. The kidnapping. Okay, fine. We're going to call it an asylum for now, even though it's not really an asylum. So we get the escape is literally bang on. So MC says, "I know this place," as they enter the operating theatre. It's really nice how we get both things running at the same time. So we've got the past doing exactly the same thing as the present. They're both running in conjunct. It's really nice. I like this aspect of storytelling. It's great. We don't need to say much. We just get these flashbacks of the young kids running at the same time. And we ourselves can go, this is the same thing. This is amazing. We can see it. So I've got to give them a bit of credit for the storytelling here. The men break into the theatre. Well, MC's having a bit of a breakdown, saying that she knows this place, and Victor has finally kind of clicked who she is. Or, well, essentially, Victor had his suspicions. This just confirms those suspicions. So as they're running, Victor says, this is the same place as last time. Why? Why is this the same? The situation from then and now are identical. Which is why we're getting these really nice flashbacks, which is why they're being used, just to get that hammer home that this is the same thing. Everything that we see happened in the past is now happening again. Young MC protected Victor from a energy blast, so she threw herself in front of him. Victor, who recognises the situation's the same, decides that as the MC goes to protect him this time, Victor decides to react as well, and they both push each other away from this blast. We see that it's the same guy. It's literally the same guy who attacked him in the previous, attacking them now. I think as Victor goes to attack this guy, MC again tries to rescue Victor. She gets in the way and she pushes him out the way. And she then gets hit in the back by this blast where she kind of just faints into his arms. Victor, who decides that Victor picks up MC, and he's finally kind of like, from this moment on, I'm going to be your shield, because he knows who she is finally. And we see that these powers around him are turning into like almost voids. They're like warp powers, and they're sucking in all these attacks which are being fired at them by these guys in black, these men in black. These warps get crazier and crazier, and eventually they suck up these guys. That is where we cut. We get our halfway marker. So put both halfway markers on the screen. First half was really, really good. We finally established what happened to MC as a child and how did she meet Victor. We're about to get even more into how did MC meet Victor. So it turns out, obviously, she met Victor before all this happened. So we get this is my favourite flashback so far. We get MC crying in a sandpit, and there's young V, and she's crying because Victor has kicked his ball into her sandcastle, and her sandcastle is wrecked. And you can see Victor kind of being very awkward, not knowing how to deal with the situation, and he just kind of goes, I'll give you some good snacks. And MC, being the food lover she is, she's like, snacks. It's just such a nice little momentum that she, as a kid she likes food, and even as an adult she still likes food, that Victor was able to sway her with food. And we get this really nice montage of them playing together. And the way it's done with them, I think it's like a pencil drawing. I think I praised God of High School for their use of these watercolour paintings for like the previous kind of montages. It's Mappa again. I think, did I say both of them are doing Mappa? I think they're both doing Mappa. Am I doing 2 Mappa Studio productions this season? Go Mappa. We get the montage of them playing together, and then we cut to Victor waiting in the rain for MC. I really like this sequence. I really do. It's more visual storytelling, which is what I like. So it's the show don't tell aspect, which you're told as a writer is better. We see Victor waiting in the rain. We see them playing together. We see them getting this bond and them enjoying each other's company. It's really nice. So we don't have to have this explained to us. We see it. And then we see MC running in the rain across the road, which is bringing us right back round. We're finally coming full circle to episode 1, where we get that scene where she was protected by young Victor in the traffic. It's really nice to finally see this kind of explained. Noteworthy, MC is holding a red umbrella. Red being quite symbolic, usually as well. It's kind of like a danger. It's quite dangerous. Like at this point, MC is red and something bad's about to happen. It's also quite a hot-headed kind of fiery colour for like passion as well. I think in this sense, it's being used because she is our focal point and something bad is about to happen. So that's why I think they're using it. It's a very standout colour. You see red and you can see it from a mile off. As well, if you study like underwater, when colours go underwater, red is always the last one to vanish in underwater. So Victor sees her in danger and that activates his powers and he's able to save her. Then we see that they get kidnapped. So he's after he's consoling her afterwards, we see the men in black arrive and they get kidnapped. So that was when they first met. So we finally get our timeline for the meeting meeting between Victor and MC. So obviously their first meeting was when Victor destroyed her sandcastle, and then that led into the kidnapping case because both of them were kidnapped. At the hospital, we see some pink flowers, which is quite nice. The pink flowers, symbolic of innocence, childhood, playfulness, and they're also very feminine in colour. This is, perfect ideal. Both of these two, obviously after what we just had with the childlike kind of memories, these pink flowers couldn't be any better. So I'm happy. I'm very happy with the symbology going on in this anime. I'm giving it credit where it's definitely due. So we find out MC has been asleep for a whole week. And Victor, this is where we see Victor do a little white lie. And he tells the doctors to essentially get MC to stay for 2 weeks. So the doctors initially say that there's nothing wrong and she's able to go there and then. But Victor makes it so that she stays in the hospital because he wants to protect her. If you guys have played Mystic Messenger, this is probably ringing lots of bells in your head. If you're like me and you're a big fan of Juman, because Victor and Juman are essentially the same character, in Juman's route, Victor Juman keeps you locked up in his apartment or penthouse. I think he's got a penthouse. He keeps you locked up when he's trying to find Elizabeth II. There we go. He keeps you locked up in his penthouse because obviously he wants you there. He's frightened. He doesn't want to lose you. So he sees you as a replacement for the cat. Obviously Victor isn't doing it for those more toxic reasons, but it reminded me of the same route, and there's a lot of similarities with Victor and Juman. Like, they're both rich, they're both CEOs, and they've both got probably very big penthouses. And in a sense, they both know the MC and they're very overprotective. So we see Victor being very overprotective in a sense. He'd rather see her in a hospital where he can keep an eye on her than allow her to be out and about where he can't keep an eye on her and he can't protect her. After MC finds out that she was asleep for the whole week kind of thing, we see Victor has grown some stubble where she is like, you were there for the whole week. And we find out that Victor blames himself, which is probably more of the reason why he's trying to get her to stay where she is, because he blames himself. She got hurt. Now that he's worked out who she is, he doesn't want to see her get hurt. He wants to make sure that he can protect her. And in the sense that he goes about it a bit too heavy-handed like Juman does, he tries to get her to stay in hospital for, I think it ends up being 3 weeks. It's quite a long time. Well, 4 weeks if you consider she was asleep for a week of it. So that's a month in hospital where she doesn't need to be there. They keep saying, we're just running tests, we'll keep running tests. And they're not. He's essentially paying for her to be kept in there because it's the easiest way to look after someone. She says that we were together during the kidnapping case, weren't we? And Victor is finally like, how did you and she's like, I remembered it. So this is the most important thing from the entire episode, guys. MC has remembered some of her past, which is the whole point, which was the entire point of everything in the first half. We want MC to start to remember. Well, whether we want her to or not, she's going to start remembering now. MC gets hungry because obviously she's been asleep for 2 weeks. And this little exchange where she's like, I want fried chicken. And Victor's like, no, not a chance. And he makes her some porridge. But MC is actually in a lot of pain. And we get this really nice scene of Victor spoon feeding her. And Victor finally explains our timeline. So we're about to get everything, like I think I've kind of gone through it briefly with you guys. We get the timeline now for everything from the kidnapping case to now. So 17 years ago, Victor was rescued, and in that time he was looking for her, and he was also trying to find the identity of the perpetrators who obviously kidnapped them all. It then flashes to the New York scene where he's like discovering that Black Swan was in New York, had a headquarters there. HBS were the largest investors in Black Swan. So, dun dun dun, it's all a ruse. HBS are tied to Black Swan. Also, guys, HBS, BS, Black Swan, BS. Anything which has got BS in it is also a load of bull. So HBS was linked to Black Swan all this time, if you hadn't figured it out by this point. So V says, also I've been nicknaming him V just to be really quick with my notes. So Victor says he accepted the request because he wanted to investigate them. And during the filming was actually a trap set up by Black Swan. But he says if it was for me, they didn't need to go to all these lengths. And then MC's like, were they trying to catch me? And he says, I'm not sure. What do they accomplish by recreating the events of 17 years ago? What has now changed? And MC says, my memories came back, which is bang on. This is what Black Swan seems to be wanting to do. They are trying to rejog the MC or the Queen and her memories. They're trying to get her to remember things. And then Victor says, my powers went out of control. Where he says, while you were unconscious, I couldn't keep my powers in check. And we've heard this before, haven't we, guys? We had the same thing, Lucien last episode, when he was trying to nudge her into remembering things by forcing her into the dreamlike state, he says, I couldn't keep her in check with my powers. So we're starting to get a lot of similarities with things. This episode's very important for explaining the plot. So I'm glad that we've got it. It's a very important episode for explaining things, getting the background out, starting to give us some backstory between the characters, and also just setting up some general understanding of the MC herself. It's a very important episode, and I like the way it's done. I don't have any qualms by the way it's done. If anything, this is the first episode in a while where I've not got anything bad to say. So I think the last 3 episodes I've had a complaint. I have no complaints for this episode. I like this episode. This might be my favourite episode so far. So obviously, power's going out of control. MC says that she's seen this before. And remember that guy who was firing at them, the guy on the rooftop, the blonde guy? His powers also went out of control. And Victor says, what were the circumstances? MC says, I was about to be killed. So this is when Victor kind of realises something, and he says, get some rest, leave it to me. And he vanishes. And then this is when we kind of go into the long waiting game. So a week later, we see that Kiki and Anna have gone to visit MC. They said that their company has protested against HBS. Kiki says, of course, because obviously they put you in danger, you got hurt. And Anna says that Victor came in to mediate, as it would be easier to deal with them with the company as LFG instead of Miracle Finder, because LFG is bigger. We also find out that Victor's installed some security cameras around Miracle Finder. And MC says, can you bring me my tablet next time? And it's a week later, and we see Kiro calling to congratulate her on her discharge. So this is when she's supposed to be discharged, but she doesn't get discharged. And MC's like, well, that's been put off for another week because they still want to run some tests, which we know is a lie. It's just Victor trying to get her to stay put. Kiro says that's fine, you need to rest anyway because you've been working so much. And then MC says that those images when we were trapped together, they were of that place when we were kidnapped, wasn't it? And Kiro's suddenly like, but how did you? And MC also tells him, I've remembered. I do find it interesting that she tells Kiro and Victor that she's remembered. But a week later, when Lucien comes to visit, she doesn't tell Lucien, which is probably a good move on her part. You don't want to tell Lucien you're remembering things. Lucien appears, and we've got another flower. I thought it at first was an iris, but it turns out to be a bellflower. And it's blue. The bellflower, or also known as a campanula, which means bell in Latin apparently. So you guys get to learn so much from me. The flower is actually used to convey a feeling of gratitude. It's a symbol of affection, constancy, and everlasting love. I think it's interesting that Lucien's the one bringing them to her, because he seems to be essentially saying that he's grateful for MC, which of course you guys might have seen the last week's video where I kind of start putting a bit of shade on Lucien and I start pushing him into that grey area. It's just interesting, like it's little things like this where you kind of, when I said keep him in your grey section, don't condemn him just yet, it's little things like this which you need to be looking out for. The blue of him being grateful and a symbol of everlasting love, just bear it in mind. That's all I'm going to say. So he tells her that rage is damaged. So she's getting really angry. So MC's like beating up her bed because she's had enough of being there. She's bored. She's had enough. And Lucien's like, you know that rage is damaging to your health and your mental health? She says, is that a bellflower? They don't usually bloom this time of year, do they? But Lucien's like, they bloomed on a day I was going to visit you. MC then says, I just want to find out what Black Swan is doing, what their objective is. I'm just tired and that's what I want to do. And we kind of see Lucien again going, you don't waver, do you? And he makes like a face, and it's almost like a face of concern. Lucien, you are so double-sided. MC says it's stronger than before. So this time my desire to find out about Black Swan is now even stronger. So almost Victor's idea of keeping her away from everything is basically fueling the fire. So sometimes the more you keep somebody away from something, the more they want to do it. There's a few animes I've seen where they try and stop idols from singing for a week, and by the time they've done that week and they've not been able to sing for a whole week, they have their desire to sing even better is just 10 times stronger, which is normally what they use it for. And we get a nice little moment where Lucien and Victor finally cross paths. And I think somebody messaged me a while ago saying, obviously you're dating all 4 of them at once kind of, and do the boys know each other? Yes. So if you are playing the game, and obviously there's a bit where you can post on the equivalent of Facebook, your post, sometimes if somebody posts, let's say Kiro posts, you'll comment. It is possible that Victor or Lucien will comment as well. Or you'll post something and all the boys will comment. Obviously, we've seen Lucien and Gavin see each other. So Lucien called Gavin dangerous. This is a moment where Lucien and Victor have crossed paths. And Lucien says, do you think locking her up is for the best? And Victor says outsiders should keep their opinions to themselves. I want to just note to you guys here, do you remember the story that Lucien told us? The story of the painter who finds a beautiful butterfly and he locks it away. I'm going to keep bringing this back because I've mentioned it in like 3 episodes now. This story, and what did Lucien just say? Do you think locking her up is best? Now, I want you guys to think, initially, Lucien didn't see a problem with the painter's actions. He said catching the butterfly, because he's scared to lose it kind of thing was an okay thing. He almost seemed to be backing the painter. But MC says that wasn't the correct move. Now, a bit later on, after obviously we've had this little interaction with those 2, Lucien's the one going, do you think locking her up is best? And this is what the arcs with both Victor and Juman all boil down to. That no matter how much you care for something, locking something away is just going to hurt that thing more than actually protect it. And it's very interesting to see it come full circle. This is what I really like this episode. This episode brings a lot of the things we've already seen and it starts to tie them up quite nicely. And it's only episode 7. Finally say that I'm giving some love and this is good storytelling. Okay, so we get back to Victor looking at the bellflowers and he asks MC, are you unhappy with my methods? And MC says, I'm scared. And Victor is like, of leaving things to me. And we again get a bit where they head to the rooftop. Everything's such a really nice scene on this. And Victor's kind of like, well, I like to look over this city when I'm worried and stuff. And MC's like, well, you can do anything you want because you have the power to do so. So what could you possibly be worried about? And Victor says, well, I'm not worried about work or my personal life. What I'm worried about now is if I can actually keep you safe. This is why I love him, guys. Can you see it? He says, you saved me 17 years ago and I was supposed to be protecting you. And MC says, do you remember saving me from the traffic? I know you can protect me from the dangers, but it means I won't face them. I won't ever face those dangers head on. I can't hide behind you. I won't hide behind you because that's not who I am. And we've had this before. This is just when Lucien was telling the story and her saying that, you need to let the butterfly fly and do its thing. You can't keep it from the danger. It needs to experience it as well. This is very similar to this mirrors the same. It's that aha moment which Lucien's had, and now Victor's getting with her. And Victor himself is like, well, you were never that kind of person, were you? We see that Victor gave her a gift and it was the souvenir pudding. And we finally get the flashback as well, tying it all back in, guys. It's all very important to tie it back in. When Victor destroyed young MC's sandcastle, he promised to bring her a snack. That snack was a pudding. And she's even like, I know what this is. It's a pudding, right? You've made me a pudding. Victor's like, how did you know that? And she's like, I saw it yesterday. Because obviously her powers of premonitions, seeing the future, they were always there. They were there before the kidnapping events. We then go to the flashback when we had him at Souvenir. And he's like, I'm looking for someone. The person he's looking for is MC. Which is why I was like, it's a little early for Victor to say that. But okay, fair enough. So she says, for 17 years, Victor's been thinking and worrying about looking for me. It's such a nice scene, guys. It's such a nice scene. We get the end credits. And then we see MC finally arriving home. And then we get a text. This sets up next episode. So we're getting towards our next episode now. And we see Gavin text her. And he's like, I need to tell you something in regards to the special task force. And MC goes to respond to the text and she gets a premonition of fire everywhere in a room. And then she stops. And then she goes to push the button again and she sees the number of 404. And we see Gavin surrounded by this fire. So we find out next episode is going to be room 404 and it's a Gavin episode. And that is our episode. This is a very important episode and I'm very happy with the way it's been done. So we've used the past to explain the present, which is quite nice. It's just been a very nicely run episode for once. We've not had anything unnecessary bringing in. We've had nothing to spoil what's coming up. If anything, we've had a lot of things tied up. This is a very good tie-up episode. We're finally getting to understand Victor's methods, why Victor's acting the way he is. We understand what he was now doing in New York. We get to understand the importance between him looking for her and why he's looking for her, and how they met each other. And we finally see what's probably the most important thing. MC can now remember some of her memories which were locked away. But whether this is good or not, obviously Black Swan seems to want her to remember something, but why? We've got to start going, why is Black Swan so hung up on getting MC to remember something? So that's what we're going for. We also found out that if MC is unconscious or about to get threatened or her life is in danger, Evolver's powers around her start to go out of control, which is going to be something we need to... What do we normally do, guys? We get a pin, we put a sticky note by it, and we're going to come back. We're going to come back for this. So we've come back for quite a few of the things I've mentioned in the past. So overall, guys, I think we've had a very strong episode. I think it's been my favourite episode so far, and I loved just the way the storytelling was done. I like the fact that we had that montage of pictures and we didn't have any words during that. It was just a nice little scene of a montage, because sometimes you just don't need to be talking over everything. You just need to relax and get, just see it. We can see how close they were. We can see they were hanging out together. We can see that Victor was really worried when he saw MC running across the road, and he was also quite sad when she wasn't in the sandpit. So we got that, not from being told, but by being shown. So I had to say, a great episode, lots of symbology going on. I love it to pieces. We ended on a nice picture of Victor, of him holding the champagne. A lot of bokeh going on. So it's a very pretty picture. Hopefully you guys can see why my favourite character is Victor. It always will be. I've always thought to myself that I think Victor, there's always a route you think has to be the canon. Like with Mystic Messenger, 707 is your main route. In this, I've always said to myself, I feel like Victor is supposed to be your canon. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did with this episode. If you are following God of High School, I will see you guys on Monday. If you are just following Koi to Producer, I will see you on Thursday. Yes, I'll see you on Thursday. So now, guys, I'm going to say like, comment, subscribe. If you want to know what I'm going to be releasing next season, because anime season is starting to wind up, you need to be following the page so you can get notified when I am going to be releasing that video. So I've got it probably down to 3 animes I'm going to be doing the YouTube release reviews on. I'm watching more, but I'm going to pick 3 because I can't review everything because I'm a very busy person with work at the moment. I will probably be going to 3 series. So to find out what those 3 lucky animes are and whether you yourself are going to be watching those animes, make sure you're subscribed to the page so you can get a notification. Make sure you ring the bell as well. Get a notification for when that video goes up. So I will see you again soon. Thank you for listening in and have a good day, guys. Bye bye.